Change is coming. Have you felt it? I know I felt it in more than one way. Well, change has been coming for me. I recently turned 53 years old, and I have to tell you, I am proud of my age. Wouldn't you say I wear my age pretty well? Yeah. So I thought. So let me share with you a secret. For the longest time, I wanted to wear glasses. And I was blessed with a perfect 20/20 vision. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, someone from way, way above heard me. And it seemed like almost overnight, my wish was granted, and whoosh, I started with the dollar store, stylish bifocals, right? Then I graduated with those beautiful ones with the line in the middle. And then finally to those, what are they called? Exactly, those that I'm wearing now, so I can see you. So my eyesight was changing. My memory started changing too. When my kids and I were talking about the same events, the story we were describing, they came out differently. I would want to say maybe our perspective, our vantage point changed. And what else changed? My memory, my sight, my hearing changed. My boys like to say that I have a selective hearing loss, but I don't hear at times, believe me. So things have been changing for me. And change has definitely been coming. This is the text my younger son sent me a few weeks ago. That moment when you turn the music down so you can see better. Oh my gosh, I laughed so hard, and I texted him back correcting him. Turn the music down or completely off so I can park in my garage. Change has definitely been coming. Hello everyone, I'm a life coach. I'm a best-selling author of the book Your Best Life Reclaimed, and I'm a speaker. I'm also a guide. I didn't know what happiness was until 5 years ago, at the age of 46. Okay, I already hear some of you going, okay, 46? Wait a minute, she said 53? She cannot even keep her own math. I did not know what happiness was just about 5 years ago, at the age of 46. This was the opening of my very first speech 2 years ago. I had just left a comfortable and secure job in education as a teacher, coach, and administrator to do what I do now, to inspire and empower others. I was invited at the Empowering Women platform at the Best You Expo, and I had to respond to the challenge that COVID presented us with to master the virtual world and speak into a virtual audience. I was a good teacher. I was a master teacher, and I enjoyed teaching my kids, my students, and teaching even teachers. But it was quite different to speak to a virtual audience. A few months later, I spoke in front of a live audience in San Antonio at Finding Your Inner Truth platform. I was being vulnerable. I was sharing my stories, and hopefully to inspire and empower others. And boy, did I have stories to share. I'm going to read to you a few paragraphs from my best-selling book, Your Best Life Reclaimed, Chapter 1. Dog treats don't taste good. Let me tell you how I know. I can still taste the awful taste of the cookies I reached out for in a pantry, stuffing myself with the next food I could get a hold of, just to fill me. Taken aback from the dreadful taste, I ran to the kitchen sink and spat the mouthful I had. Puzzled and curious about what I had eaten, I went back to the pantry and picked up the plastic container I had grabbed earlier. The blue label outside the container read, "Dog treats." Slowly descending to the cold kitchen floor, palms embracing my head, I felt warm and heavy tears rolling down my cheeks. Humiliation, shame, unworthiness, and powerlessness filled up any space I had left within me. I left at the bottom, a very bottom possible. I had just eaten dog treats. I was 23 years old and was working illegally as a babysitter, although I had graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in social pedagogy and management of education from the University of Sofia, Bulgaria. I had just recently come to the United States, grateful to leave the life I left behind, working illegally as a babysitter and cleaning houses to make ends meet. Being here on a tourist visa and working hard to get a work visa to become a citizen and start a new life in this land of promise was my plan. Yet, I was so heavy with pain and baggage from my past. I was literally killing myself, one bite at a time. And had I been a doctor, and if I was to diagnose myself, my level of unhappiness on a scale from 0 to 10, I would have been right at 11. My story. I grew up in communist Bulgaria. I grew up with mom, dad, and my younger sister. And to everyone outside of our apartment, we were the perfect family. We were the happy family. Yet the picture inside our small apartment was quite different. My father was a very small man with a very big ego. He was a political officer in Bulgaria in the Air Force. To everyone outside our home, he was a responsible husband and father. Yet, he was quite a different person that I knew him. My father liked to drink, and he drank daily. And after his second drink, he was becoming a different person. He was screaming, yelling, cussing, oftentimes violent. My mother would cry. My mother was a big and heavy and obese woman with no ego. And somehow my mom always knew exactly what to say to provoke my dad. And I just knew the fights coming and the screaming and the cussing. And I remember oftentimes my sister and I, we would hide in the corner, covering our heads and ears, just wanting for everything to disappear and for us to disappear, for everything to go away. And birthdays, let me tell you, our birthdays and celebrations, where more food and drinking were involved, were my nightmares, my worst memories in my life. I still remember my 9th birthday, January. The guests had just left. My father was just wobbling, trying to walk and trying to talk incoherently. And of course, my mother had to point it out to him. And this time, the fight just erupted and started within just seconds. My father screaming started becoming violent. My sister and I hiding again in a corner. This time, something changed. My mother ordered my sister and I to put our coats on because we were leaving. We were leaving the apartment. Where? Nobody knew. We were leaving. I remember the dreadfully cold January night. We walked down the town square, and with having nowhere to go for hours and hours, we eventually came back to the apartment in the wee hours of the morning. And mind you, just a couple of hours later, I had to get up and go to school and continue with the pretense of my happy family. I hated growing up in Bulgaria. I still hate cold and I hate winters. And being raised, I was raised to please everyone. I was a pretty eager to learn girl, yet no matter how much I tried, I could never please my family, especially my mother. No matter what I did or said was never good enough. I was not allowed to say no, no matter how much physical pain and suffering and emotional suffering not saying no cost me growing up and later in my life. I hated my life growing up in Bulgaria. Why am I telling you all these stories? Because I lived them, but I also left them. As I was growing up, I had no control over whatever was going on in my life. But I found that one thing I had control over, and I could control, my food intake. So I started with just humiliating anorexia. I could never hardly eat because I never wanted to be like my mother, obese and unhappy and judgmental. But then the periods of bulimia followed. So my teens and my early 20s and 30s were colored with constant struggle of losing weight, then gaining it. And my weight was a roller coaster, and so were my emotions, a total roller coaster. There's this dichotomy in my life. My life prior to 1992, when I came to the United States, and my life after. And oftentimes, when I think about that prior life, my life in Bulgaria, it's almost like a dream within a dream within a dream. I've worked so hard to erase and just let go and disappear. My healing started in 1992. And my healing took many years. In fact, my healing took decades. I became a mother to my wonderful sons, Dennis and Daniel. On my way to my healing, I became a teacher in 2001, then a coach to teachers, an administrator. I became a personal trainer in my own way, trying to help myself, my eating disorder and my weight management issues. I loved helping others, but they did not know that. The more I were helping others, the more I was helping myself and healing myself through that. In fact, not only I trained people, but I got ready and I competed in a bodybuilding show at the age of 45, in a Phil Heath bodybuilding show, in a master's division. So I did all that. And I learned a few tricks along the way. You know, we always try to lose weight, but our body, our heart doesn't know if we're carrying 50 pounds of fat or 50 extra pounds of muscle. Because I was really attracted to and dating all these big, huge dudes that look like scientific projects, right? Your heart just pumps as hard. It doesn't distinguish between fat or muscle. I did learn a few tricks along the way. I became an NLP certified life coach and human design, living your design guide. What was the solution for me? What really helped me overcome the adversity of my past? I have to start with this. My children did. And in no way am I suggesting that being a single mother raising 2 boys by herself is an easy job. But I loved my kids and I wanted to provide them with the security that I did not have growing up. With the love, unconditional love and stability and acceptance I did not have growing up. They taught me so much. And unfortunately, I have to tell you that my kids also witnessed me when I was at the very bottom of my bottom. I was not a perfect mother. When I was binging, oftentimes, they were the witnesses. As I was preparing this PowerPoint, I came across a note that Dennis, my son, and Daniel wrote to me, and I have it here on the side. It was written November 7th of 2005. Let me pull it out. I've saved it all these years. It says, "Dear Mom, do not overeat, please. Try your best. Drink water, just say no. Ask me for help. I love you. Dennis and Daniel." November 7th, 2005. My kids helped me. My support system helped me, having friends. I have this wonderful person I want to thank for being the rock in my life. My only family I had at the time, my American mother, Wendy, and she's here. I'll introduce you to her at the end. She was the person who saw me at the very bottom, too. She saw in me potential and believed in me when I could not see potential in me. When I could not get up the next morning, she was there for me. So I thank you, Wendy, for being my support system. Reading, educating myself. I still love reading. In fact, I read 2-3 books at a time. Some of them are digital. And to keep up with what I'm reading, I have this memo pad on my phone. So book 1, I'm on page 35. Book 2, I literally mark the pages so I can keep up. And educating myself. Yes, I was a teacher. I was administrator, but I consider myself a lifelong learner. I'm a student of life. I continue studying, and currently, I'm studying human design, the human design system. Coaches help me. Elizabeth shared with us earlier, we hardly ever talk about the coaches. And believe me, there were good ones that I learned from, as I learned from the bad ones as well. So my coaching experience definitely helped me too. Last but not least, my failures helped me. And believe me, I failed more times than I would like to admit. Yet, there are purpose to our failures. They happen there for a reason. They happen to chisel us, to prepare us, to give us the life lessons we need to learn to move on and to grow into the people we were meant to be. So I developed this diagram that I believe it shows our reality. And I call it the 3 F's. And I know already some of you are thinking, okay, she's coming with an F-bomb now. And you should say 3 now? Okay, here we go. Our reality consists of our fears, our failures, and our faith. They're all related, and they all depend on each other. One is not possible without the other. So let's take a look at them. Starting with fear. What is fear? Well, fear is our body's intelligence, our innate body's intelligence to protect our body. This kind of fear is good and healthy for us. And we have 3 basic fears that are based in our 3 awareness centers. We have the splitting fear to the left. That's the fear for survival. And this is the very old fear. It's over 4 million years old. I have to tell you, even animals, mammals, and any kind of living creature possesses that fear of survival. Then we have the fear of having to be certain. That's the mental dilemma we all have, which is in our ajna. And finally, we have to the right, in the solar plexus, the fear of expressing our emotions because we just don't want to rock the boat. Have you been there? I know I have been. So let's talk a little more about the splenic fear, the fear of survival. Did you know that kind of fear when it's a short-term fear, is healthy for us. It's good for us. Because what happens when we have this short-term fear, our blood starts pumping harder, sending more blood to the muscles. We are able to run faster, think quicker, react quicker. This kind of fear is known as flight or fight reflex. It's there to protect us, and it's there to be a short-term fear. However, when this fear is chronic and ongoing, it becomes very unhealthy. Think about our education system. I cannot not help but talk about the fear our teachers and students are living with, the chronic fear they face on a daily basis. We think teachers have it well, right? Security, paycheck, insurance. Yet, is that truly the pictures for our teachers? They are depressed, they're overworked, unappreciated. Did you know that education is the only profession I know of that penalizes teachers for using their sick days, whether they're staying home because they're sick or caring for their own sick children? Because at the end of the school year, when the teacher has her evaluation with the administrator looks at how many days that teacher was absent from work. And they look at the sick days too. So teachers are afraid to take care of themselves and their family and stay home when they need to. Let's not even bring the anxiety of the long hours of test readiness, of having to teach strategy to kids and coming home to be the best mother and wife and having to go back to work to another day. How about our students, right? Do you think they're stressed? Man, I'm telling you, these kids, my heart breaks out for them. These kids live with so much fear and stress today. Having to perform, having to memorize strategies. They're not allowed to fail. If they fail, they go to tutorials. Their names are listed. And can you imagine that our kids are taught by these depressed and stressed out teachers? What do you think is the outcome of that? Happy students? Students that are learning? Not necessarily. Let me talk about that fear that is up here in our Ajna Center. Our fear of having to pretend to be certain all the time. Do you know that I know people who cannot go to bed to sleep unless they have earbuds in their ears and they have to listen to their music or listen to somebody else talk? Why do you think is that? They're afraid to hear their own thoughts in their own mind because it never stops. Keeps going and going, asking questions that most of them don't matter. And the fear of expressing our emotions. I know I've been there. Have you felt that you could not express your emotions because you're afraid what the person you're talking to might think of you or say? And you don't want to upset them, yet who is the only person that you continue upsetting over and over again? Yourself. Let's talk about failure. That's the second part of our diagram. You know, based on our individual makeup and design, we experience failure in life in one of the 4 ways. When we fail, we're either frustrated, that's about 70% of the population. When we fail oftentimes, we feel bitter, about 22% of the population. We're either angry, about 9% of the population, or disappointed, about 1% of the population. And let me tell you, you do not have to know what bitterness is. You just had to meet me after my failures and hang around with me. And you would know what bitterness is. Because I failed so many times. I failed over and over again. I failed in my business adventures. I tried real estate. I tried selling electricity. I tried to be independent personal trainer. I failed so many times. I failed in my personal relationships. Let me ask you this. Have you been in a relationship where you're the only party that thinks there's a relationship? I've been there. I have an open spleen, and I tend to hang to things and people after they're good for me. When they're no longer good for me, I still have a hard time letting go. I failed so many times. Yet looking back at all my failures, I'm thinking, were these failures without any purpose? Were they there to break me down? And were my failures a waste of my time? I challenge you to ask yourself the very same questions. Think of your failures in life and ask yourself these questions. Were these failures futile without any reason and purpose? Were they there to break you down or build you up and chisel you? Were these failures a waste of your time? Now is the part where I ask you and I challenge you to ask yourself, what are some of the lessons you learned from your failures? Our faith. What a beautiful word, faith. Actually, I named my younger cat Faith because at the time when we adopted her, I was going through such a challenging time in my life that faith is the only thing that kept me going. And when I'm talking to you about faith today, I'm not preaching religion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that innate, inner knowing within you. Faith, your only pathway to consciousness and awareness. So let's talk about who really has access to that consciousness and higher awareness. We live in a world of polarities. On one end, we have millions of children and people who don't have adequate access to food. They die out of starvation on a daily basis. Do you think these kids and people have any access to that higher consciousness? No, they're in survival mode. Let's talk about the other polarity. People who not only have access to food and nutrition, but they have overabundance, overindulgence of food and nutrition to the point where they're obese and they're dying, and their diseases that develop are obesity-related diseases. They're dying out of overeating, overindulgence. Both those extremes are living in a survival mode. Neither of those extremes has really access to higher level of thinking and consciousness. Well, let's talk about the middle group too, those lucky ones. We're in America, many of us are blessed. The ones that go 8 to 5 their job, they have access to nutrition, they make good money, they have coverage, insurance, and all this. Yet, are they the ones who have access to consciousness and awareness? Many Americans, they spend, in addition to their 8-9-hour work days, they spend an additional 1-2 hours driving to and from work. Then they come home in the evening to cook dinner, to clean, spend time with their 2-3 children, and be the perfect parents, help them with homework, and numb the pain and the exhaustion and depression with a glass or 3 glasses of wine to make it for another blissful day at work. So these people, although they may seem like a lucky one, they really don't have access to higher level of consciousness and awareness. So we are the lucky ones. And I'm going to quote to you a quote from one of my masters and teachers, Alocanan Diaz, who lives in Ibiza, Spain. We call him a lock. In our teens, we're so concerned with knowing the answers. When we mature and become wise, we learn to ask the right questions. So I'm challenging you today. What are some of the questions you have not asked yourself recently, being so busy and driven and oriented with finding answers? Because you know, answers do change. The only constant we have in life is change. And awareness and consciousness is not something you do. It is something you are. Change is coming. I introduced myself to you at the beginning as a life coach, a best-selling author, and a speaker, and I am all those things. But I'm also a guide. I don't just fuel knowledge, I fuel consciousness. In my work, I work with people who feel prompted that they need me as a guide. I provide one-on-one coaching based on the person's individual human design, helping with the awareness of the defined centers, those things that we are just gifted with, and they naturally come to us, and with our open centers, the language of the not self, and how those open centers can be viewed also as a great potential for wisdom. I also offer group coaching based on our centers and our design. And let me tell you, I am not the coach for everyone, and that's okay. If I am the bakery and you're looking for the frozen yogurt that is fat-free or sugar-free, I'm not the coach for you. I am the baker. In fact, I'm not the coach that will put you on your next diet. I'm not the coach who will tell you what shouldn't eat and what you should eat. And I'm not the coach for you if you want to lose weight fast. Although once you start living your life aligned with your human design, you may find that you shed the weight you've been hanging on for all these years. I'm not the coach for everyone. And I'm not the coach to tell you what to do. Hear what I am. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to inspire you. And I'm here to challenge you. But I also am here to ask you the questions and teach you how to ask yourself the right questions. I'm here to fuel your consciousness. In this society we live in, abundance is often associated with money. Yet when you think about abundance, abundance is more than the sum of your wealth. It is a state of being, it is a mindset, and it is your way of life. So I prompt you to think of what is your state of mind today? What is your being? And how are you feeling about your life? How fulfilled are you? I would love to hear from you. This is how you can reach me on my website. I'm not big on the social media, but go ahead and check out my website and email me. I would love to hear from you and get some input from you. Well, this concludes my presentation. I thank you so much for your time and your attentiveness. I would like to thank Elizabeth and Andy for this opportunity. And I would like to thank our sponsors for this beautiful venue and delicious food. And before I go, I want to introduce to you some people here. My older son, Dennis. Dennis, stand up, made it. And this is the special woman, the special lady I was talking about, Wendy, my American mother. I would not be here if it was not for this woman who believed in me today. Wendy. Thank you again so much.